Hey folks, welcome back to my channel, Relationship Haven. In today's story, Opie found out his girlfriend cheated on him with a guy after she claimed she was just giving him emotional support to help him get over a breakup. Yeah, right. Opie then got revenge by ghosting her without giving her any warning whatsoever, and now his girlfriend is losing her mind. In today's second story, Opie found out his wife of 20 years cheated on him and needs advice on how to proceed. Now, let's get into today's stories. I have been dating a girl I met at work. We'll call her Martha, for 1.5 years, of which the last half year has been long distance. We've been meeting once a month for a weekend or so. We have another colleague, let's call him John, and we've met his longtime girlfriend, let's call her Jane, on the vacations we've taken in the last year. Jane works elsewhere and has been with John since their high school days, more than 9 years. A week ago, I got an email from Jane. I don't know you too well, so it's probably not my place, but I got jilted and I don't want the same to happen to the other hurt party in this matter. John and Martha have been involved since October. I don't know to what extent or if it was from even before. I don't wish to know either, because whatever, I'm aware of beyond a doubt from their messages, and subsequently his confession is enough for me to break it off. I'm not in touch with anyone in that crowd anymore, and I don't intend to be. I don't know what your relationship with her is. This was just an FYI. Good luck and take care. I trust my girl, so my first reaction was to show her this email and ask her to find out if John is okay after what seemed to be an ugly breakup, as they're very close. She got defensive and said I had no right to accuse her, and I should have deleted the email and have never shown it to her if I truly trusted her. I spoke to another colleague, Bill, and told him what had happened. He said John had told everyone he had a breakup sometime before October, but continued hanging out with Jane, which everyone had found odd, intervened, and then finally left him alone on the subject. He also told me that Martha and he spent a lot more time together now, though he didn't suspect anything romantic. Now, I'm not proud of this part, but I got frustrated at this point and wrote back to Jane asking her for evidence. She wrote back saying she didn't want to get involved any further, and the confrontation was in person. So, anyway, she had no evidence. I wrote back, desperately asking for some message or chat for me to confront. She wrote back giving some personal details of the things she had read, the terms of endearment they had for each other, the physical involvement description, etc., and said to either trust her or not, but please keep her out of it for now. I confronted Martha with the details, and she denied the whole thing. I really don't know what to do. Update. Here's how it unfolded. I told her I was uncomfortable with this whole scenario and would prefer if she maintained some distance from John. She burst into tears saying she was only being a good friend to him to help him through his rough breakup. I demanded to know why she hadn't told me about the breakup if she knew, what with all her continuous yapping about every other random thing. She said he had told everyone about the breakup, but was still trying to make it work with her. So, she wasn't sure what the scenario was. She went on to tell me that Jane was a complete psycho and told me horror stories of things she did for attention. Jane was allegedly envious of my girl's closeness with John, even though nothing was going on between them. She said John had finally severed ties, which caused her to lash out and attack her. Martha threw me. I believed her and felt quite terrible for doubting her. After a lot of her tears were spilled, I apologized profusely and suggested we keep our distance from both of them until they sort out their own shit. She reluctantly agreed. A day later, yesterday, I got a call from Bill, another colleague, and he tells me they were all out together and he saw them making out when they excused themselves for a smoke break. Martha doesn't smoke. I didn't confront or react. I requested Bill to not mention anything to her or John about having alerted me. I told her I had left a few files on her computer and couldn't remember where or what they were called, so I needed some remote access to her system for some time. I pretended it was extremely urgent, and I feigned a state of panic. I told her it would take me some time to transfer the files. She gave me access and went to take a shower. I went into her Gmail, but it had nothing. Facebook chats, nothing. Skype, nothing. I felt like shit again, thinking I'm terrible for doubting her, and then I realized she had left her phone on a charge through a USB on her laptop. I accessed the folders, and there it was, the ugliness bare of the person I had spent the last 1.5 years loving. Sex chats, dirty pictures, references to the nights they were together, panic, and respective other halves finding out. Nope, he hadn't broken up, just told people in the office that he had. And finally, the latest message of taking it slowly until things settled down. I cleared my traces and logged out. I haven't confronted her yet. I'm deciding between a stone-cold, dignified walk away or to make her weep drama-induced walk away. Last update, I left without a word. I know she will try her emotional drama and try to explain away even this with absurd logic or playing the victim or get on the offense by attacking me. I'm not interested in any of that. I left, and she can figure out why to hell with her. As advised by a lot of you, thanks to Jane, she replied saying, "Good riddance, take care." Martha has asked a few common friends to ask why I've blocked her. I told them not to speak of her to me or of me to her. She's a mess from what I hear. I honestly don't give a shit. Indifference feels sweet. Didn't expect to feel this good so soon. I'm grateful to her for being such an in-your-face bitch. That sure helps. Thanks everyone for your support to better times ahead. Cheers. Opie, I'm sorry you had to go through this, and I hope you quickly restore yourself from this relationship. She is an awful human being. She manipulated you and made you doubt what was true. Forget about her because she doesn't deserve your time and effort. You deserve someone better, someone who wouldn't lie to your face or try to gaslight you. I'm glad you found the evidence because if it wasn't for it, you would have still believed her lies. Let's see what the comments had to say about the situation. The Bunny 42 said, "I know it takes guts to break up with someone because you fell in love with someone else. I know it's a sniffly thing to do, fall in love with someone else while you are with someone else, but at least have the freaking decency of allowing that other person to move on with their life. Is it people who lie and cheat and don't tell because they're trying to spare that other person's feelings? I mean, which is worse, telling them you're no longer in love with them or cheating, lying, conniving in the background? I personally think it's the cheating, lying, conniving that's worse. I see the lies as no different than a con artist. You are lying to get one over on a person. Is the person paying your bills, your rent? Is that why you're conning them while you get your rocks off? Nothing different than what a con artist does. As someone who has been cheated on 1.5 years later, the stone-cold walk away still feels good. I went to no contact, and he was telling mutual friends for weeks that he wanted to talk to me. I was bent on moving on ASAP. I regret nothing. I'm glad you decided to just leave without making a big drama. This shows how much of a mature person you are. Breakups are really tough and made worse if you have to leave because of infidelity. You, sir, have my absolute respect for how you've handled the situation, and I hope you keep your chin up and enjoy the rest of your life. Peace, man. I agree with you 100%. Now, let's get into today's second story. Here's a little background. Me and my soon-to-be ex-wife were married for 20 years or so, and by all accounts, had a great relationship. Then she had an affair brought on by a variety of circumstances, midlife crisis, mental health, etc., and we tried to reconcile for several months, but she eventually got back together with her affair partner, moved out of our house, and has since lived sometimes with him and sometimes when they fought or when he kicked her out elsewhere, mostly couch surfing and other temporary solutions. We have a signed settlement agreement, but are still waiting for a judge to put final approval on it. It's been more than 15 months since Discovery Day and almost 9 months now since she moved out and we began the process of divorce in earnest. Meanwhile, We still see each other fairly regularly because we have a son to co-parent, even though he doesn't see his mom particularly often. He lives with me full-time and sees his mom for a few minutes, a few evenings a week after school, and for the occasional weekend day adventures, usually a bit less than the one day every other weekend that is outlined in our agreement. My soon-to-be ex-wife and I get along fairly well, all things considered, and I try to keep the lines of communication open because I think it's the best thing for our son. Not to say it hasn't been hard at times, of course, but I've dealt with the pain, and so I'm pretty well for the most part. I did some therapy in the early stages, and I focused on self-care and self-improvement as much as I can given the cramped schedule of being a full-time single parent with a full-time job. Everything seems to be going well. Then I find out she's in line for a new and better job, and for some reason, this news has really knocked me off my center. It's strange to me that given how poorly she has handled her social life, blowing up our relationship, which I know she regrets, not meeting her responsibilities with our son, losing contact, and being in conflict with a bunch of her family and old friends and other aspects of her personal life, reckless spending, mounting debts, looming bankruptcy, she seems to really be doing well at work. That, I guess, is where she's focused all of her energies. This, in spite of the fact that she's constantly worried, even now, that her supervisors will find out about A, the divorce, and B, the fact that her affair partner is a coworker. But even that is okay. I mean, I'm fine with the fact that she's had success at work, but then I found out she has a line on another job, one which will substantially boost her salary, and I'm knocked off kilter. So, I've been trying to figure out why this is bothering me so much, and I've come up with a few things. I suppose it is part of the fact that, with this new job, she would make considerably more than me, and there's something about that which feels unfair, given how our relationship developed and ended. I'm a little pissed that, while I have a job and a career that I love, the extra burdens and responsibilities that I've had to undertake in the last 15 months because of her infidelity or unwillingness to meet her parental responsibilities have definitely caused me opportunities to advance my own work and career. So, her career advancement strikes a sour note with me. Her increased salary may complicate my life in specific ways. It will likely not be enough to fend off bankruptcy in the long term, but it may well be enough to reduce some financial support that we rely on for our son's school, meaning that, best case scenario, since we share the school expense, her promotion will cost me money. And worst case scenario, especially if she can't get her spending under control, we won't be able to afford the school he's currently in, which will complicate my life considerably. Her increased salary may cause some other minor headaches for a complex of reasons that I won't get into here. Mostly, I suppose, I think about how, if she hadn't blown up our family, she would still likely be in line for a move like this. If not this year, then maybe next year. And we would, as a family, be enjoying the benefits of that new job without the consequences of the rampant spending that accompanied the affair and, in her case, continues in its aftermath. And we would be, as a result, gearing up for a pretty sweet summer, one where we would have the flexibility and opportunity to do a lot of things that we had always wanted to do. I don't even know for sure if she'll get the job or not. She should find out in a few weeks. If the organization's background checks for new leadership hires don't include a credit check, then I think she's got a pretty good shot. At times, I've toyed with the fantasy of somehow encouraging the search committee to include a credit check, but that's just a fantasy. One of the first decisions I made as I was first dealing with the situation 15 months ago was this. I get to decide how this changes me, and I'm not going to let this situation turn me into someone that I don't want to be. That has served me pretty well as a core principle moving through all of this, and so I wouldn't really do anything to sabotage her career. But even so, the thought of her getting that job hurts a little, but fortunately, typing this out has helped. OP, how you're feeling is quite understandable. You're human after all. Try and look at the situation from the perspective that you're spending quality time with your son. I'm sure he will appreciate you being a good parent, so that's a big win. And about your ex-wife, contact your lawyer. Since you're mostly taking care of your child, and due to that, you've been lacking with your job, I'm sure he or she can offer you some advice if your wife does get the job. Take good care of yourself and your son. Let's see what the comments had to say. Birdsing 29 said, I see her paying alimony and child support to you. Speak to your lawyer. I'm confident that will be the case. I get why this bothers you, and I don't blame you one bit. However, it might be time to be a bigger man. You may want to show your son how man acts and not be vindictive or resentful. Work on being the best that you can be and being the best role model for your son that you can be. Also advise your lawyer of the situation. You should be able to revisit any previous agreements. Yes, I know it sucks, but sometimes you just have to hold your head up and move on. All the best to you. Settlement agreements can change because of an increase in salary. Have your lawyer redo it if she gets the promotion. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's stories. If there's a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. Today's story is about revenge. OP's wife left him for a high school dropout affair partner who is broke as a joke. Now Opie is living his best life after he got a promotion at his job, and his wife is now begging for him to take her back. In today's second story, Opie's girlfriend is begging for mercy after he kicked her out when finding out she still has feelings for her ex. Now, let's get into today's stories. Opie's wife started to like her personality, silly me, and after 3 months of fooling around, I decided to give the relationship a try. She was from a different town, about an hour away, but she would spend every weekend, holiday, and vacation with me at my place. When we met, I was a CEO and project leader of a company some other fellas, and I tried to build from the ground up, but the owner, the boss, unfortunately wasn't able to secure enough funds for us to continue working on it, despite the fact that we were 2 to 3 months away from putting the product on the market. I'm from an area, a country in Europe, where jobs are really hard to come by, but nevertheless, I applied for everything I was qualified for. I didn't care. I just needed a job. I got quite a few interviews, but no luck actually securing a job. This went on for 6 months. Of course, the fact that I didn't have a job made us both a bit uneasy, but I really didn't get a feeling that it was affecting our relationship at all. At the beginning of this year, in January, I had a meeting with my counselor at the Unemployment Bureau. She asked me if I wanted to attend some courses where they teach me to code. Without hesitation, I said yes. Not only would I be able to get a job, but I wouldn't need to worry about employment for the rest of my life. I applied, and a few days later, I found out that they accepted me. I don't know what their criteria was, but I knew that they didn't want to take just anyone, and I was ecstatic. But something was off. A few days prior, I started to notice her being kind of weird, cold, unattentive. I knew something was amiss. She was starting fights over nothing. I couldn't make sense of it at the time. In one of the arguments we had, I said, "Look, everything is going to be fine now. I'll learn to code, and after a few months, we'll be set for life." And she responded with something along the lines of, "Who cares? You're going to fail miserably anyways." Phew. That was weird, I said to myself, but I shrugged it off as her being in one of her bad mood swings. Didn't think much about it at the time. As you might have figured out by now, there was someone else in the picture. A week later, she dumped me for her coworker, a high school dropout working a manufacturing job. I was beyond shook. I sat in my pain for the next 3 months, but then it was high time for me to stop feeling sorry for myself. As I had started with my classes, COVID postponed the whole thing a bit. And I had a lot of work to do since I had never, ever seen code before in my life. Now, mind you, these courses were Microsoft courses, and the exams we were studying for were Microsoft exams, for which they only gave us 3 months of time, counting down from the last lecture of each course. So I had my work cut out for me. These kinds of exams are usually taken by people who have a degree in computer science or at least employed programmers for the last few years. One day I got home from my classes and opened my laptop. I read the book and did some exercises until like 1 a.m. I was drained, and the more I was looking into it, the less I understood. But at least I got started. I went to bed, tossing and turning, and thought to myself, what in the hell did I get myself into? I will never pass this stuff. Then, out of nowhere, I heard those words in the back of my head from when she was cheating on me with the other guy. Who cares? You're going to fail miserably anyways. I lit up like a Christmas tree, got back up, and continued to code until 4 in the morning. Every time I was exhausted and about to lose it from all the new information, I remembered those words, and it was more than enough to keep me going. Today, my fellow betrayed, I passed the first Microsoft programming exam, and I have already been studying for the second one for the last 2 months, a totally different programming language, which I plan to take and pass as well. Like the title says, sometimes the much needed motivation comes from a strange place. I just wanted to share this with people who can relate in some way to the story, as I haven't told anyone else yet. Update. It's been a little over a year since my first and last open topic on this subreddit. At this opportunity, I'd like to thank every single one of you for your support and your encouraging words. At the end of each year, I like to take some time for myself and look back on the year. Therefore, I decided to write another post to this community since it has been so helpful and encouraging to me in the past. Hopefully, it will inspire even one person going through the same turmoil and hurt I went through almost 2 years ago. So what happened since my last post? I got my first software developer gig at the very beginning of the year. The very first company I sent my CV to decided to hire me not long after my original post. I started work in the beginning of January this year. My initial contract was only for 6 months. Understandably, the company wanted to make sure that they didn't take on board a cat in the bag, and I was eager to start my career. So I took the job. They allowed me to work from home, although the offices were only a 3-minute drive from my place. I decided to make sure that I took full advantage of the opportunity in order to display to the whole world who I was and what I was capable of. After about 3 months on the job, I was having a Skype call with the lead tech of the software we were developing. He was not a member of the company, but was a private contractor. This guy was one of the most respected developers in the whole country and had been working for himself for the past decade. Toward the end of our conversation, he said, "Hey, do you work on any projects for yourself?" I responded with, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I have a lot of clients and they're all looking for software developers. You've got some real talent, so let me know if you're interested. I can recommend you to them." I said, "Well, not right now. I have a non-compete clause in my contract, but that contract will expire in the summer, and I can hopefully renegotiate with my company to take the clause out." He replied, "Do that and then notify me." Thus, at the end of 6 months, the CEO of the company called me. He said that they were ecstatic with my work ethic and my potential, and that they would like to extend my contract. I said, "Sure, I'm interested." I mentioned that I wanted my non-compete clause out of my next contract, and he responded with, "Well, I'll have to check up with the owner first on that." He then proceeded to tell me the salary they were prepared to offer me in our new deal. I immediately knew I was worth more than that. In my mind, I was like, "You're absolutely insane if you think I will sign that." But I responded by saying, "I'll get back to you." I could hear in his voice that he was taken aback a bit by my response, but he said, "Okay, notify me after you think about it." I gave him a call a few days later, a day before my contract officially expired. We talked for a bit, and he said that the owner did not like the idea of me opening up my own software developing business, as they were scared that it would affect my focus and work in their company. I said that I understood, but I knew that I wasn't backing down from that as independent software developers were making a killing out there. Later that day, I responded to him with an email where I stated what kind of salary I wanted and that I wanted the non-compete clause out of the contract, and those terms were non-negotiable. The next day, the day my contract officially expired, I got a call from the owner. Within 15 minutes, he had agreed to all my terms. All I had to do was sign with them for an indefinite term. And at the very end of the conversation, the owner said, "Oh, and one more thing. You are not a software developer anymore. You are head of IT development." I responded with, "Damn it, I should have asked for a higher salary." We both laughed, happy that we had reached an agreement. I accepted the offer and started contacting the companies the lead tech connected me with. Long story short, I finished this year with not only getting a job, but becoming the of the department at the company that hired me. And after my job, I am working for clients in the afternoon and evening that are working on projects for the state. Yes, you read all of that correctly. People admire me and respect me. And needless to say, money is the least of my worries nowadays. My monkey branching ex, as far as I know, she is still with the loser she dumped me for, struggling to make ends meet every month. If she had any concept of loyalty, she could have been a retired stay-at-home wife and mom by now, which she stated multiple times was her wish. I guess she would rather struggle for the rest of her life than support her man and wait another year and a half. Oh, well, c'est la vie. Merry Christmas to every single one of you. If there is anything I want you to take from my update, it's that you should take that pain and hurt and turn it into a fire in your belly that will propel you to new heights and enable you to live a life you never even dreamed of. I know it is still pushing me to be even better and achieve even more every single day. OP, I'm glad to hear you are able to bounce back strong. The best revenge sometimes is bettering yourself. No hateful back and forth, no nuclear option. Just be the best you can be. I'm a true believer in you reap what you sow. Now, let's get into today's second story. Hello, all. I wanted to share my story about my ex cheating on me. It kind of has a wholesome end to it. This was a tough one to deal with for a while, but time healed the wounds from it. Essentially, things felt like it was a happily ever after before she had to go away for a work trip and ended up with her ex. I will post the full story here, too, because it's still good for me to get this off my chest, even though a few years have passed now. So I met my ex-girlfriend at a bar one night when we were out with groups of our friends. She and I hit it right off and exchanged numbers. Before long, we were texting regularly and became an item not long after that. I had dated a fair bit before her, but we really clicked. I actually had that feeling of the one for the first time ever. We had a ton in common, got along famously, had similar goals in life, and just really enjoyed each other's company. She had dated a fair bit before me, too. When we got to the talks of exes, there was one that kept coming up. Let's call him Ethan. She talked about how she thought he was the one, but he was a dick to her, left her a couple of times, and wasn't very well liked by her family or friends. I could tell she had an infatuation with him as she had mentioned moving on, but he would always weasel his way back in. She assured me, though, that he was gone for good and that she had long blocked him everywhere. That gave me a sigh of relief, but deep down, I just had a feeling. Fast forward 9 months. Things were going real well, and we were looking at getting our first apartment together. We were zeroing in on a couple of places, and were getting ready to make offers. I already had my own place, and she was still with her parents, but was practically living at my place at that point. We just wanted to get more space in a place that was truly ours. One day, she came home from work and said the craziest thing happened. Remember my ex, Ethan? He got hired in the sales department of my company. My stomach dropped when I heard that. She worked in the operations department of her company, and I knew that they worked closely with sales for projects. She had started working there a few months prior, and I would like to think it was completely by chance, but you never know. I asked her if this would be a problem. She said no. She would be avoiding him, but also felt that time had passed and that they could be professional together. I did not have a good feeling about it, but she assured me it would be no issue, and that if there was, she would look to move. That was when things started to change. At first, it was small things. She wouldn't want to meet for lunch as often. I used to hear from her throughout the day, and then it became an odd text here and there during the work days. But outside of work, everything was fine. We were still getting along. I didn't notice her more preoccupied with her phone. I never checked it or anything like that, and she was still coming and going at regular times. She just kept saying it was getting busy at work when I pressed about her not engaging as much during the day. Fair point. Then the big one came. She came home and told me that the company was flying her team alongside sales and marketing to their head office for a few days for specialized systems training. I asked if everyone on all teams were going, and she said yes. Subconsciously, I knew right then that it was over. I was trying to play it cool, but inside I knew something might happen there. I still gave her the benefit of the doubt, but told her I was concerned about them being away together. She assured me nothing would come of it, and that she had barely spoken with him. It would be fine. On the day of the trip, I drove her to the airport. It wasn't a long flight, but she texted me when she landed, and we had a Skype call from her hotel room. She said she was going to dinner and for some drinks with the team later, and that she would talk again before her day started. That was the last time I spoke with her for the entire trip. She texted me when she got to the restaurant. Then it was radio silence for 3 whole days. I texted her asking how it was going. Nothing. I tried calling and got her voicemail. I just said I wanted to see how it was going. Nothing. She texted me once after 2 days that she was fine and just swamped, that she was tired when she finished up and would call me before she left. She didn't. On the day of her return home, I texted her saying that if she wanted me to pick her up from the airport, she needed to let me know. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there. I was so pissed at that point. I get things come up and you get busy, but I just felt like something was going on deep down. I never heard from her. I finally texted her that I was going to be at my place and that it would be nice to see her when she got back. I tried to keep calm, but just knew that something was up. A few hours went by, and then all of a sudden, the door opened. She came in and started saying how much she missed me. I asked her how she got back from the airport. She said a friend drove me here. I asked if it was Ethan, and she said maybe. At that point, I was enraged but still kept calm with her. I told her I thought something happened between them while she was gone, and I wanted to know the truth right then. She kind of stared off blankly and then started crying. She said yes, it did. She said at first it was good intentions and she had no plans to see him, but that they got talking when the team was at the bar, and then one thing led to another and she was back in his hotel room with him. She then said they pretty much had sex the entire time they were at the company head office, which is why I never heard from her. She tried to defend herself, saying that he was her one that got away, and this provided her some closure. None of that made any sense to me. She then told me she got it out of her system and that it would not happen again. I told her that she was still working with the guy, so there was no way it was over. I told her it was over for us though, and she had 24 hours to get her shit out of my place. She begged and pleaded to stay, but I wouldn't have it. She eventually left and within a month was officially dating her ex again. No surprise there. They actually seemed to make it work and got married not long after too. Good for them. Happy ending, I suppose. It messed with me for a long time and I had a hard time trusting people again. Eventually I moved on too, and it was all for the best. Ope. I'm glad you were able to overcome what happened. Your ex may have gone off to marry her affair partner, but I assure you that in a few years they will be divorced, and she will come crawling back to you wanting you to give her another chance. When she eventually does, you know what to do. Give her a trash bag while she's at the door and tell her she needs to take the trash out. I'm sure she will get the message. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's stories. If there's a story you'd like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Hey folks, welcome back to my channel Relationship Haven. In today's story, Opie found out his girlfriend cheated on him with a coworker, then ran off with her affair partner. Now, recently Opie's father passed away from cancer, and his cheating girlfriend has the nerve to want to show up at his dad's funeral with her affair partner. Opie then exposed her motive to people around them, friends and family, as well as the internet, and now her reputation has been completely destroyed. Let's get into today's story to find out what happened. A little background. I met her 5 years ago. We have been together for the last 3 of those years. The first 2 were spent just casually dating. I love this girl. We did have arguments a little more frequently lately, but that's because of my insecurities lately. See, about a year ago, I was going through a death in the family and I wasn't able to be there for her. We decided to take a break for a few weeks, a mutual decision, and for me to get my head on straight. We talked often during these weeks, nothing deep, as we wanted to give each other space. Weeks after we got back together, I found out she started flirting with a coworker. They went out a couple of times. She went down on him, too. She also showed me the texts. We worked through it, but I've always felt insecure as they see each other every day. A few days ago, we had a fight. We had made plans, and she canceled the day of. She has a habit of doing so last minute, and it annoys me, but whatever. So later, we talked, and I asked how her day was, etc. She sent me a few pictures, and I see a restaurant in the background. When we met later, I asked her about who she was with, and she didn't exactly answer, but after taking it upon myself to look through her texts, I saw a conversation with the same coworker talking about having lunch together at a very unique type of restaurant, the same type that was in the background. I was so mad. I asked if it was him, and she repeatedly said no. I left and went home. I woke up and saw I was blocked everywhere. I decided not to bother her as we both needed time to calm down. Today, I decided to look at her Facebook page through someone else's account. It said she's in a relationship. The coworker's account said the same. For context, when we were together, she never once put in a relationship, but I didn't care. It's only Facebook. Suddenly, her and the coworker who showed single are now both in a relationship. I've messaged her friends and everyone she knows, but no one is responding. What do? I can't work. I can't eat or sleep. If she broke up with me, I'd be okay, but she chose to do it in such a way. I need answers. I need someone to tell me what's going on. I feel like I'm starting to come off as a crazy person, but what am I supposed to do? Update. It's been over a week since I found out my ex-girlfriend and best friend of 5 years had been having a long-term affair with her coworker. She ghosted me when I found out. First things first, you people saved my life. I admit I was having very dark thoughts during those first few days, and the words and sentiments of you folks helped me trudge along. I finally told my family and friends. Some of them already knew as our friend group was sort of blended after 5 years. To say my mother was hurt was an understatement. She loved my ex and thought I would marry her. I had taken your advice and just went completely silent. I purged my house of everything that reminded me of her, everything she got me or left here, packed it in boxes, and asked one of my friends to deliver it to one of hers. I wanted to be proactive. When my friend got back, he told her friend and earful about how I had been treated. I didn't ask him to. Apparently, she was apologetic. She supposedly didn't know my ex cheated. Yeah, right. I think she just doesn't want to look bad now that it's coming out. The ex is a cheater. No way she didn't know, but whatever. Yesterday, a blank random Facebook account messaged me. It was my ex. Here's what she said. Hi, I got the stuff from Talia. I get you're probably mad at me. I get that I messed up by not breaking up sooner before things happened, but I think it's really cruel of you to tell people our business and even return things I got you as gifts. They were meant for you. There was no reason to be so ugly about everything. This is exactly why I did not say anything. I really think me just disappearing will help you move on faster. There's no reason for it. One day I hope we could both look back on our relationship fondly as something that helped us become better people. I hope you can reach that point in yourself. I ignored the message and then blocked her. I've got my appetite back. I still have moments where I just can't help but break down, but I feel anger more than anything else. I'm burying myself in work, and most of my interactions with people involve a good deal of faking it, but I'll get there someday. What worries me is my anger. Here's another update. A few days ago, my dad passed away. Somehow, my ex found out. On social media, I have received such an outpouring of support from and some of them are friends with her friends. My friends already know not to talk to me about her or share anything about me with her or her friends. My mother is broken. My ex, who has been blocked by my mother and family, decided to text my mother her condolences. She went so far as to imply that being the caring person she is, she'd like to offer my mother her support and attend the funeral. Guess who with? If you guess the affair partner, then you're right. Why? Because she will support her while she's supporting my mother. This sucks because my mom loved her and they were close until she cheated. My mom didn't even bother responding. She just told me what happened, told me she doesn't want her there or to reach out again, and will leave it to me to handle it because she doesn't want unnecessary drama after all this. Now, I have no choice but to confront her. I also know confronting her is giving her exactly what she wants. She'll be able to say I'm the one reaching out to her. What should I do? What should I say? I have not dealt with it yet, but I plan to. Here's yet another update. First of all, thank you all so much for your condolences. I'd have loved to answer each one of you individually. Thank you all from the bottom of my and the family's hearts. I took all your advice into consideration. At the end of the day, regardless of the harsh way I personally want to put my ex in her place, I think I see things my mother's way. I don't want any sort of conflict or ill will or cruel words spoken about the circumstances in which I'm putting Dad to rest. I just want peace until after the funeral. I decided I'll not respond to her in any way. I've also spoken to my family through the group to tell them about what happened. Understandably, many were angry and wanted to rip her a new one. I pleaded with them to restrain themselves and that we needed to stand in solidarity and agree we all will meet her attempts with complete silence. I got all of them to agree that if she reaches out to them, we'll just ignore and block as many times as necessary. We won't even acknowledge she exists. Everyone's so protective of me now, so there's a new unity to the family that's really humbling. I'll speak to the funeral personnel about the ex to make sure in case she does show up, she'll be turned away. I'll go to the police station tomorrow to at least inform them just in case. Maybe they can advise me as well. If a restraining order is my only recourse, I'll take steps in that direction. Lastly, when I told my friends about it, they weren't surprised. Turns out my ex is posting about being devastated by the loss of my dad and is soaking up the pity like a leech. My friends had already agreed amongst themselves to keep this under wraps, to not stress me out. They volunteered to be spokesmen and spread the word to literally everyone that she isn't welcome and that we'll have security to keep her out if need be. They'll also run interference for me the whole day. I was really touched. Right now, my priority is making sure my mom isn't affected by anything else. I'm staying with her until the funeral. She's a really religious woman, So she doesn't want to be too harsh with the ex and says she's forgiven her or is trying to. So the best she can do is continue to just ignore her. I'll update after the burial. Here's my final update. My dad's funeral service was beautiful. One of his close friends asked if he could put up the time and location on his social media so my dad's friends out of state could see and attend, and they did. Fortunately, I did not hear a peep from my ex in the days leading up to it, and I didn't care to. Her parents did attend, though. They didn't stay long, and they mostly spoke with my mom, but I hovered around her the whole day just in case. Not a word was mentioned about my ex. They were cordial with me, and I didn't get the sense they were unhappy with me, but they had the tact not to talk about anything else. It was sweet, honestly. In the last few days, I've gotten a few friend requests from people in my ex's camp, but I ignored it. Yesterday, my friend, same guy I asked to return her stuff, showed me a message from Talia that is basically spewing hate my way. Talia, her friend, said that I'm immature, pathetic, and trying to make my ex's life miserable. I asked them to extract what this was all about, and she sent me a screenshot of a YouTube video shared by one of our friends to her. It didn't take long for it to reach my ex, and wow, out of curiosity, I decided to accept one or two of the friend requests, and this is what happened. I've gotten pages of my ex calling me abusive for not having the courage to face the woman I'm besmirching, but dragging her name through incel echo chambers, and that I not only denied her the opportunity to say bye to my dad, but talked openly enough about her private business that it's trickling into her workmates' conversation. She then said that as if that isn't bad enough, I'm psychologically attacking her by encouraging strangers on the internet to bash her. Her accusations honestly got under my skin, and I responded only to ask what about the post wasn't true. I tried to explain that I first made the post in a moment of immense emotional upheaval and panic, and I just needed advice from people who suffered through the same, and that I did not reveal anything to expose her or myself to strangers, but she was adamant. I was told my ex apparently cried when she heard some of the comments and said that her new boyfriend wants to settle things with me. He wants me to reach out to my ex and apologize to her. I'm tired. Honestly. I don't care about talking to her, and I honestly don't think I have to justify making an anonymous post on Reddit to sort through what was a difficult time for me. What struck me most is that the cousin, who I honestly feel was in contact with the ex while talking to me, was more offended at what commenters said than what I did. She couldn't pick out a single thing I lied about, not one. Thank you all for the support you have given me these last few months. This community has been among my most resolute supporters, giving me strength with your own stories of betrayal and perseverance. Even some of the harsher advice was incredibly useful to me. I truly believe if I had every last one of you in my ear a year ago, I'd have been spared so much pain that I now believe in part was self-inflicted. You're the best. Wow, Opie. The entitlement that your ex has is unbelievable. The fact that she felt the need to show up at your dad's funeral means that she must be a full-blown narcissist. If I were you, I would continue to ignore her and try your best to move on from this situation. If anything, consider the fact that she found out her story was exposed on the internet as a good thing. Hopefully, it can help her narcissistic mind realize the disaster she has created and will for once feel an ounce of remorse. I wish you all the best, Opie. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's story. If there's a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take Up told me that he never even considered voice-activated recorders until he talked to his nephew. Let's go. Our marriage had always been built on a foundation of trust, love, and mutual respect. Over the years, we had tackled countless challenges, always emerging stronger and more united, but the issue of open relationships had proven to be a divisive force, casting a dark shadow over our once happy union. It was an issue that had first surfaced a few years ago, and it had continued to rear its head in our discussions ever since. On that particular evening, the tension in the air was palpable as we sat down to have yet another conversation about open relationships. I felt a heavy sense of dread in the pit of my stomach as we began to discuss the topic, fearing that it might be the straw that broke the camel's back. As I listened to my wife passionately argue in favor of the idea, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of hurt and betrayal. It felt as though she was asking for permission to cheat on me, to break the sacred bond that we had spent nearly a decade nurturing. My mind raced with questions. Was our love not enough for her anymore? Was I no longer enough for her? I tried to maintain my composure, swallowing the hurt and anger that threatened to overwhelm me. I knew that this was an important conversation, and I couldn't let my emotions get the best of me. I needed to express my feelings clearly and calmly in the hope that we could find some common ground and resolve this issue once and for all. I didn't marry you to share you, I told her, my voice steady but firm. I could see the irritation flicker across her face, but I continued. When we made our vows, we promised to be there for each other through thick and thin, to love and cherish one another, and to be faithful to each other. I don't believe that an open relationship aligns with those values, and I'm not willing to change them now. Her response was dismissive as she rolled her eyes and told me that I was overreacting. She insisted that exploring an open relationship wouldn't diminish our love for each other, and that it could even strengthen our bond by introducing new experiences into our lives. But I couldn't shake the feeling that allowing other people into our relationship would only serve to erode the trust and intimacy that we have built over the years. We argued long into the night, each of us growing more frustrated and hurt by the minute. By the time we finally went to bed, we were no closer to a resolution, and I couldn't help but feel as though a chasm had begun to form between us. Little did I know that this was only the beginning of our marital turmoil. As the weeks wore on, the rift between us only seemed to grow wider, our intimacy waned, with my wife becoming increasingly distant and uninterested in physical affection. I found myself lying awake at night, plagued by thoughts of her betraying me behind my back. She began spending more and more time with her friends from work, as well as reconnecting with old friends from her childhood. While I knew that it was healthy for both of us to maintain our own social lives, I couldn't help but feel an annoying sense of unease each time she went out without me. I found myself obsessively checking her social media, trying to glean some insight into her activities and the people she was spending time with. It was during this time of escalating suspicion that I had a casual conversation with my nephew about the latest technology in surveillance devices. He told me about voice-activated recorders and GPS trackers and how they could be used to discreetly monitor someone's activities. As he spoke, I felt a mixture of intrigue and guilt wash over me. The idea of spying on my wife made me deeply uncomfortable, but at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss in our relationship. I desperately needed answers, and this seemed like the only way to get them without resorting to hiring a private investigator, which was an expense I couldn't afford. After conducting some research on the best devices available, I made the difficult decision to purchase two voice-activated recorders and a GPS tracker. When they arrived, I carefully installed them in her car, my hands shaking slightly as I grappled with the knowledge that I was invading her privacy. I knew that I was crossing a line, but I couldn't bear the thought of living in the dark any longer. For the first few days, I listened anxiously to the recordings, hoping to find some evidence that would either confirm or dispel my suspicions, but it wasn't until the end of the first week that I discovered the painful truth. My wife had been unfaithful to me. The sound of her voice, mingled with those of the men she had been seeing, was a gut-wrenching confirmation of my worst fears. I also found a conversation in which she badmouthed me to her friends, describing me as lame and boring. The betrayal cut deep, and I felt as Though the wind had been knocked out of me, it was one thing to know that she had been unfaithful, but to hear her speak so disparagingly about me was a whole new level of hurt. As the initial shock began to wear off, I knew that I couldn't just sit idly by and let her continue to deceive me. I needed to take action and protect myself both emotionally and financially. I opened a separate bank account, careful not to arouse suspicion by transferring money from our joint account. I also began the process of distancing myself from her emotionally, no longer initiating physical contact or offering her any affection. With a heavy heart, I realized that our marriage was beyond repair, and it was time to take the necessary steps to end it. As difficult as it was to accept, I knew that I deserved better and that I needed to be strong in order to face the challenges that lay ahead. Determined to protect myself and my interests, I decided to consult an attorney. I presented him with the evidence. I had gathered the recordings of my wife's infidelity and her disparaging comments about me. I explained the situation and my desire to file for divorce. My attorney listened carefully, offering his sympathy and professional guidance on the best course of action. He informed me that while Michigan is a no-fault state, the evidence of her infidelity could potentially be used to my advantage in negotiating the terms of the divorce. Especially when it came to alimony, he advised me to gather more evidence if possible to strengthen my case and ensure a fair outcome. Taking my attorney's advice to heart, I decided to gather more evidence of my wife's infidelity. I rented a car to follow her discreetly, ensuring that she wouldn't recognize me or become suspicious as I trailed her movements. I documented everything I saw with my phone: photos of her kissing other men, videos of them holding hands and embracing, and even some of them groping her in public. It was excruciating to witness these intimate moments between my wife and other men, but I knew that it was necessary in order to protect myself during the divorce proceedings. With a growing sense of resolve, I forwarded all the evidence I had collected to my attorney. He assured me that this would significantly bolster my case and that he would do everything in his power to ensure a favorable outcome for me. With my evidence securely in my attorney's hands, I decided it was time to take the final step and file for divorce. My wife was served with the papers at her workplace, and her reaction was nothing short of explosive. She called me, her voice shaking with rage, hurling insults and accusations at me, but I refused to engage in her outburst, knowing that I had made the right decision and that there was no turning back now. In the meantime, I moved out of the house we had been renting, putting physical distance between us and giving myself the space I needed to process the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. It was a difficult transition, but I knew that it was a necessary step toward healing and rebuilding my life. The day of the divorce hearing arrived, and I steeled myself for the confrontation. My wife's attorney attempted to argue that I was required to pay alimony, but my attorney countered with the evidence I had gathered. He presented the photos, videos, and recordings demonstrating her infidelity and betrayal. The judge listened carefully to both sides before making a decision. In the end, he agreed with my attorney and denied her any financial support. Relief washed over me as I realized that the battle was finally over and I could begin the process of rebuilding my life. In the months following the divorce, I learned through one of her friends that my ex-wife had moved in with one of the men. She had cheated on me with her friend, confided in me that the man was a deadbeat, unemployed, and contributed nothing to their household. It was a bittersweet revelation, but it also confirmed that I had made the right choice in ending the marriage. As I continued to heal, I began to rediscover my own sense of self and independence. I pursued hobbies and interests that I had neglected during our marriage, and I slowly started to rebuild my social circle. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. With time, I felt ready to dip my toes back into the dating pool. I knew that I wasn't quite ready to commit to a serious relationship, but I was eager to explore the possibilities and meet new people. I tried my hand at online dating, attending singles events, and even accepting setups from well-meaning friends. I approached each new encounter with an open mind and heart, taking the time to learn about myself and what I wanted in a partner. There were moments of awkwardness and disappointment, but there were also moments of excitement and connection. Through it all, I reminded myself that I was on a journey of self-discovery and that each Experience, good or bad, was a valuable lesson. As the months passed, I began to come to terms with the reality of my situation. I had survived the heartbreak of my marriage collapsing, and I had emerged stronger and tougher than before. I made a conscious effort to work on myself, attending therapy sessions and participating in support groups for divorced individuals. Through these experiences, I learned that healing is not an easy process, but rather a series of ups and downs. There were days when I felt like I had made great progress, and others when I felt like I was back at square one, but I remained committed to my journey, trusting that with time and effort I would find peace and happiness once again. As I continued to heal, I came to understand that my life was not defined by my failed marriage, but rather by the choices I made moving forward. I began to embrace my newfound freedom, allowing myself to dream and imagine a future that was entirely my own. I knew that I still had a long road ahead of me, but I was determined to make the most of the opportunities that lay before me. I started to set new goals for myself, both personally and professionally. I focused on my career as a city surveyor, pursuing opportunities for growth and development. I also made a conscious effort to maintain a healthy work-life balance, dedicating time to my hobbies, friendships, and self-care. Although I had been deeply hurt by my ex-wife's betrayal, I chose not to let it characterize my life or hold me back. Instead, I used it as a catalyst for growth and transformation, emerging as a stronger and tougher person with each new day. I took another step forward on my journey toward healing, knowing that I was creating a new beginning for myself, one filled with hope, happiness, and endless